Canonical released the new Ubuntu 25.4 beta version. Let's have a look what is new, what has changed, and if Ubuntu is heading into the right direction. And with this, welcome to Linux Ort. I installed the Ubuntu Plucky Puffin version. This is how Ubuntu 25.4 is called. And this is in the current point the development branch. The final version will be released at the 17th of April. And this also gives us a small site for the next Ubuntu LTS release, which will be in about 1 year. Ubuntu 25.4 is just a minor version, which only has about 9 months of updates, so I won't recommend it for any production use. Also, if we have a look to the repositories, there are many packages missing for these minor versions. But yeah, let's just have a look what has changed. We can have a look to the new App Center, which was introduced in Ubuntu 24.4. Of course, this App Center is focused more and more on Snap. So if we, for example, search for an application, then we see here all by Snap packages, but we could also enable Debian packages if we want. Okay, for Debian packages, we don't have any search results, but I guess Spotify has a Debian package. Yeah, okay, it don't have it anymore. Is this search for Debian packages screwed? Okay, this is a beta version or developer version, so this could be okay, but I won't be too wondered if this also gets into the final release, or am I doing anything wrong here? We don't find any Debian packages anymore. This is kind of awkward, but of course the whole Ubuntu ecosystem is focused now on Snap packages. You can have different opinions about this. The only thing for me I have to complain about is that they are replacing many applications which were built by APT, for example Firefox, Chromium, but also now even the CAPS system, so the printing system of Linux. If you like this, then this is fully okay. But I also think that Ubuntu is separating itself from the other common Linux distributions, because all other big Linux distributions are not using Snap by default. They tend to use Flatpak, one of the more community-ish app centers of Linux. And of course, yeah, this has the Flatpak technology underneath, which is kind of similar to Snap. But yeah, they have their technical differences. For example, the FlatHub or Flatpaks in general are more desktop focused, where Snap has also a server focus, which makes Snap to a really good alternative. For example, also if we have a look to Docker, which is the container runtime for servers. One thing I have to complain about applications in overall with Ubuntu is if it comes to app images. For example, let's open up KDN Live. I'm taking the app image here, for example. So app images are some kind of portable app which aims to work on every Linux distribution by default. This application is only in one file. So what I can do with it, I select right-click Properties and select Execute as Program, and then let's have a look if this just works. Ubuntu had some complaints about this, but if it turns out this now also works by default on Ubuntu, which is great news, which takes Ubuntu to a much more better position in my opinion, because yeah, Ubuntu users don't have to complain about getting app images to run in another specific manner. They can only mark it as executable and just run it. This is kind of okay. What's indeed is missing, but also many other Linux distributions could make this better. If we don't have the property executable as program, then we could open it with disk mounter. This isn't a thing we want to do here. We only want, yeah, kind of add this to our app menu, for example, and kind of install it. Ubuntu is not providing any defaults here. It shows, okay, they want to not get too separated from the other Linux distributions. I'm very curious how this war between Snapcraft or the Flatpak is going on. If you look to the Flatpak, we have many more Linux distributions directly implementing the Flatpak. I'm very curious how this turns out, if Ubuntu sticks to Snapcraft and if many other distributions maybe also allow snaps inside the system. Of course, you can install Snap on almost every Linux distribution afterwards, but honestly, I'm unsure if there are many more distributions following the Snap initiative, because it looks kind of caged and also not as public as the Flatpak, and these are not really good starting conditions for such a project. If we look to Ubuntu itself, Ubuntu announced that also the base of Ubuntu will be distributed as a Snap in the future, but the apt package manager is still available and functional, also with a complete Snap base of the main Ubuntu system. The first version for this is announced for 2026, so we need to wait about 1 year to have a look how this in the end turns out. Let's come to some other news about Ubuntu 25.4, and this is the installer. This is the installer here. I'm choosing the language English in here. There hasn't changed too much until now. We see an update for this installer. I guess this is okay for now. I just want to show you the overall functionality. We can install or try Ubuntu. Let's go with install Ubuntu, and then of course we have our automated auto install file, which is introduced with the new installer. I guess it was Ubuntu 24.4. Then we see here our app selection, and the default selection is now just the essentials, the web browser and basic utilities. I also only chose the default selection. Here we see what comes with this default selection. We have additional drivers, calculator, document viewer, just the basics. We have a web browser, our App Center, of course, file manager, and some very, very basic utilities. And this is it. And they arranged all of these applications to one site, and this is it. And with the extended selection, we get, for example, LibreOffice, and also, I hope, Thunderbird, for example. But the default selection is now just the essentials. Honestly, I like Linux distributions where not too many applications are installed, but also I like, for example, if we have a look to Linux Mint, that they installed right away LibreOffice suite and also Thunderbird, because it's really good software and many of us users really need this software. So now here you have to reinstall it again. This is it for applications, but also install recommended proprietary software. This is okay for most of us. For example, graphics and Wi-Fi hardware. Also some media formats like MP3, MP4, very important in many cases. Let's just choose alongside Linux Mint, then we can choose how many gigabytes we want for Ubuntu or for Linux Mint. This is kind of cool. I like this very much, to be honest. It's very easy. And in the next thing, this is very cool, Ubuntu introduced. Also Pop! OS does this since many years now, but for example, Linux Mint is missing this. They ask you, do you want encryption for your file system? Very, very cool. We also see some more advanced options. For example, the LVM without encryption. Very cool. Also ZFS support, which is really great for companies, I would say. So here Ubuntu really, really shines. And also if we have a look to the blog post of Ubuntu, then we see we get a better handling of Windows BitLocker encrypted disks. It can now really work with these. This is just a really good onboarding process here Ubuntu is providing. Just type in our name. This is very default since 2004, I guess. We could also use Active Directory in the next step. This is kind of classic. Also Linux Mint is missing such a feature inside their installer. In the end, we see all our choices, and this is also very cool. So we can have a look. Okay, did we do everything correct? What is be formatted? What has been shrinked? What is about security and more? Very, very cool. This is the new improved installer. I would say this is one of the biggest plus sides of Ubuntu 25.4, and which will be a really good update for Ubuntu 26. 6.4. Also, if we come to another news, let's have a look to the Security Center. I guess it's a really new application we see here. We see some app permissions, and we see also require apps to ask for system permissions. This is kind of new. I'm very curious. Snap has a kind of good permission system, like for example Android for their applications. This is a thing all Linux distributions in the traditional way hadn't in the past at all. So yeah, Flatpak and Snap are just introducing such app permissions. So yeah, I'm very curious about this. This could be a thing for a fully new video, and also I guess it wasn't introduced in Ubuntu 25.4, so it was already present in earlier versions of Ubuntu, but it seems kind of new, and of course it's an experimental feature as we see it here. Also, let's have a look to the Linux kernel or the system information. Let's head over to the settings here of our GNOME. We see about system, about. Here we see our system. We have a Linux kernel 6.14. It's kind of new. We see many improvements for Ryzen AI NPUs, AMD GPUs, DRM panic support, better Realtek Ethernet controller support, and of course all the new hardware which was introduced since the last Ubuntu versions. So really great to see also a very new kernel here. But yeah, this is only for this minor release. To be honest, also kind of default that a new Ubuntu version gets a newer kernel, but very nice to see the 6.14 inside this Ubuntu version. Let's also have a look to GNOME 48, which was released some days ago. We got a bit more improved system menu on the right top here. For example, also we could expect better accessibility for the keyboard backlights, and also we got a very new menu entry in our settings, which is called digital well-being. Here we see how much screen time we do have in our Ubuntu here, but honestly, I'm recording now about 40 minutes, so I don't know where the 13 minutes are coming here, but okay, we just take it. We see a screen time limit we can set. We can set a day limit for, yeah, very adjustable, for example, for 8 hours. And then after these 8 hours, the screen will grayscale. Very cool feature. And also here we see Wayland really shining, because with Wayland, it's much more easy to turn such screen modification and manipulations, because it's a much more up-to-date framework in comparison to the X11 system, which Ubuntu was traditionally using until a few years ago. Also, we see some eyesight reminders, also very cool. And then we get some reminders, we get some sounds, we get movement reminders. So when we have to get up of our chair, walk for a couple of steps, very cool, these well-being features. And I guess this is it for the well-being feature here in GNOME. Very cool to see this here. To be honest, also we don't see in how many time we spend in some apps. Honestly, I think this is kind of good because otherwise, yeah, our system is kind of spying on ourselves. If this is too much for you, you could also disable your screen time here, and then this isn't recorded in any way. Also really good setting here. And this takes GNOME apart from all other desktop environments we see in Linux distributions. So very cool to see a new feature here, which is completely new, at least in the Linux space. This is kind of everything we see as complete new functionality in Ubuntu 25.4. So you see they are only getting the GNOME updates and just delivering them out in the new Ubuntu base. But also, we saw some changes in the Ubuntu installer, which is really great. Also, we got some other application updates. For example, let's have a look to GIMP. It's now called GNU Image Manipulation Program, because GIMP is kind of offensive. Then we see a very new version, 3.0.0. Yeah, we got we get a very big update for GIMP. I'm very looking forward to it, and I guess I'm also making a video about this new GIMP version, and then we will have a more detailed look what has really changed with this big step of GIMP. This also is now a big advantage if we compare this to other Linux distributions which are delivering GIMP as a normal package. So also all older Ubuntu versions are getting this new GIMP update because it's delivered as a snap, and then also Ubuntu 24.4 will get very soon this new update, or even already has this new update. Also, we got a kind of new update with the document viewer, because in the past Ubuntu and the whole GNOME universe used Events as a document viewer, but now we have GNOME Paper, I guess, or GNOME Papers. We only see document viewer here. Yeah, here we see it. GNOME Papers it is called. This has much more up-to-date functionality and also is very modern. So if I get a PDF, for example, then yeah, we see some kind of new interface, but it doesn't look too high sophisticated. We can see some annotations in the PDF files. We can see our table of contents and also a thumbnail kind of view. So we get an overview of all sites. This makes it a bit more easy to get around this PDF, for example. Also, we see our main menu here. I don't know why many GNOME apps do have their main menu kind of in the middle of this whole thing. This is very awkward, to be honest. Also, if we toggle the sidebar here, we don't see any main menu anymore. Very misplaced in my opinion, but this isn't only with the Papers app. I also saw this at some other apps here. Yeah, we can have a night mode, very cool. We could sign digitally. This is very cool. We can get a slideshow. Okay, very nice. How it is with dual page. We could also get some dual pages here. Then you can read it like a book. We could rotate something. We could get to the full screen, and this was it in any way. So here we can also see fit automatically. Very cool. Very nice controls here with our scaling, but this is it. So yeah, it's very basic, to be honest, and I don't find too many new features in comparison to Events, the old PDF reader, but it's much more up to date if it comes to UI. If you look for a more capable PDF viewer, have a look, for example, to Ocular. It is the app from the KDE project, which can do some kind of annotations and many more things. Here we see a really big difference between the GNOME universe and the KDE universe, because almost all KDE apps have more functionality. This is why, yeah, for example, also Ocular is used across some other Linux system environments. And this is also, for example, if we have a look to KDE Live, yeah, this is of course also a KDE app. And KDE Live has become so big that also the most user base is not on Linux anymore because it's on Windows. So KDE Live just started as a KDE side project and is now kind of revamping the video editing software market with a very good free and open source software, also capable on Windows. So yeah, you see KDE has some apps which are really good and which are spreading out way more than all, I guess, GNOME apps, because they are kind of basic but also have their charm if you like such apps. This is it for the Ubuntu 25.4 version, I would say. Please have in mind that this is only a development version. The real Ubuntu version is released on the 17th of April this year, so we have about 2 weeks. And in overall, I think it's, for a Ubuntu release, it's a good release. I like the changes in the installer. I like the new GNOME version, of course. Also the thing with snap packages and the direction into kind of atomic distributions is kind of exciting. So they are really changing a lot in the system. They have many ambitions there. Also, app images are just very easy to run also on Ubuntu. This was a thing which was missing in earlier Ubuntu versions. But in the end, I have one small point to criticize Ubuntu once more, and this is with the VirtualBox Guest Edition installation, because they don't find bzip2, maybe also not tar. So I just installed bzip2 afterwards. It would be great to give new users a really good experience, and also I guess bzip2 isn't too big to add this to the Ubuntu installation. And it would provide a very smooth start for beginners with Linux, which are just running Ubuntu, for example, in a virtual machine with VirtualBox inside here. And also, I guess bzip2 is a kind of universal thing. Would be great if Ubuntu will add this in the future. So this was it for today for this video. What do you think about the new Ubuntu 25.4 version? I'm thinking for a Ubuntu release, it's great. I'm not a too big fan of Ubuntu because there are many scenarios where Ubuntu doesn't deliver. For example, the file manager is not too good in my opinion, and it is missing some functionality compared to many other file managers, but this is only the beginning. There are many other things I have to criticize about Ubuntu, for example, the snap-only way, also the messages in their updates, hey, please upgrade to Ubuntu Pro. These are all things I don't like about Ubuntu at all. And also the opt-out option of data sending and so on. I have a great list about this. Maybe I will also make another video about this. But if you like Ubuntu, then I would say Ubuntu is heading in the right direction. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And then we are seeing us right in the next video. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend. Bye.